The well-known Munchausen by proxy sufferer, who is scheduled for early release from prison on December 28, speaks candidly with PUPL in a new interview. Gypsy, after serving 8 years in jail, Rose Blanchard occasionally finds herself mentally reliving the events of June 2015. She vividly remembers how she and her then-boyfriend Nicholas "Nick" Gaudejon plotted to assassinate Gypsy's mother Dee, who had forced Gypsy through traumatic medical operations she didn't need for years. Gypsy is 32 years old and will be freed on Thursday, December 28. Gypsy is thought to have been the victim of Munchausen by proxy, an uncommon type of abuse where a guardian makes up or inflates a child's condition in order to get pity and attention. This claim was made in court. Gypsy says that at the time of Dee's murder, she was being physically and mentally mistreated and coerced into having yet another needless surgery. She now says to PUPL, "I was desperate to get out of that situation." In her despair, Gypsy said she asked Gaudejon to kill her mother, and while she waited in the toilet of the Springfield, Missouri, house she shared with Dee, he did just that. Where is Gypsy? Rose Blanchard right now. Within her life 6 months following release from prison. With well-known Hollywood reenactments such as HBO's 2017 film Mommy Dead and Dearest, and, more recently, Hulu's 2019 series The Act, this crime has garnered international attention. However, as she gets ready to share her own tale in the engrossing new Lifetime documentary series, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, which premieres on January 5, she is talking exclusively to PUPL for a forthcoming cover story about the profound regret and feeling of forgiveness she now feels. Gypsy states, "If I had a second chance to do everything over again, I'm not sure if I would go back to my childhood and tell my aunts and uncles that I'm not sick and that my mommy makes me sick, or if I would go back to just that moment in time and tell Nick, you know what, I'm going to go tell the police everything. I have some difficulty with that. However," she continues, "I will never claim that I'm happy that she's dead or that I'm proud of what I accomplished. Every day I regret doing that." By the time Gypsy turned 7, Dee had made up a story about how sick her kid was. Among these was muscular dystrophy, which Dee said necessitated Gypsy's usage of a wheelchair despite the girl's unhampered walking. Then came the needless and excruciating feeding tubes and the accusation that Gypsy had leukemia, which prompted Dee to shave Gypsy's head. Dee misled medical professionals into making a diagnosis and administering treatment by making friends and family think the illnesses were genuine. Years were spent in the dark by Gypsy herself. She cites her epilepsy diagnosis in saying, "Obviously, I knew that I could walk and didn't require a feeding tube, but everything else was a pretty great confusion for me. My mother would always tell me that I had a seizure the previous night and didn't remember anything when I questioned it. There was always an explanation." Gypsy claimed she had learned not to confront Dee about her outrageous statements. "I would voice concerns, being like, I really don't feel like I need this. And she would get really, really upset with me and start manipulating me," Gypsy relates. "If you do well at the hospital, then we're going to Toys R Us to buy a new Barbie," Gypsy used to be told in order to encourage her to comply in the early years. Even worse, Gypsy says, "I was very sheltered." She was never enrolled in school and, for the most part, prevented from interacting with her father Rod, stepmother Christy, or her half-siblings. "My exposure to other children and the content I could view were restricted. The only outside world I was exposed to was through Disney films, and those don't discuss the telltale symptoms of dysfunctional parents." However, she rebelled as a teen and a young adult, and her mother and she had violent arguments as a result. "I did my best to show respect, but it wasn't always easy. She would refer to me as Sulti, Wa, E, and B." Gypsy says Dee started hitting, punching, slapping her in addition to verbally abusing her to get her way. "It was very similar to a domestic violence type of relationship," she explains. "Everything is oak as long as you're complacent. Apply pressure, and things will get worse." After trying to flee from yet another unnecessary treatment, this time on her larynx, she made the decision to have Dee Dee dead. I just wasn't having it, Gypsy adds, recalling that she left her house but was found a few hours later. She found me, brought me back and put in place paperwork saying I was incompetent and she had power of attorney over me. Gypsy thought there was nowhere left to turn at that point. I was trying really hard to figure out another way, she explains. Joan was sentenced to life in prison for carrying out the murderous assault. Recent sources claim that he has declared that he will carry out the same action again to save Gypsy. After years of introspection, self-examination, and counseling, Gypsy asserts, she didn't deserve that, adding, unfortunately, I wasn't educated enough to see that she was a sick woman. She should have been serving her sentence in jail for her illegal actions, which is where I am now. Gypsy in the new documentary. Rose Blanchard recounts relentless child abuse. I Am Who I Am, unabashedly Gypsy's release was officially granted in September, 2 years ahead of her 10-year term for second-degree murder. She's excited to see her dad and stepmother again because they've supported her through thick and thin, and she braces herself for the intense attention and scrutiny that lies ahead. She is also eager to join her 37-year-old spouse Ryan Anderson, a teacher from Louisiana, whom she wed while incarcerated last year. We're in love, she declares. He will discuss her complex story in the upcoming Lifetime docuseries, along with her family, previous doctors, and many more. She hopes that her story may serve as a warning. I want to make sure that people in abusive relationships do not resort to murder, she continues. Although it could appear that all paths are blocked, there are always alternatives. Don't follow this path, instead do anything. She admits, I'm on the eve of happiness as her independence draws near, even though she's still processing her history. This is an adventure. She continues, I'm still working incredibly hard to forgive her, myself, and the circumstance. I still cherish my mother. And I'm beginning to realize that, like an impulsive junkie, it might have been something beyond her control. That aids in my ability to cope and accept what transpired. Call 1-800-4A-CHILD or 1-800-422-4453, the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. If you believe a child has been abused, or visit www.childhelp.org. Every call is private and toll-free. The hotline is open in over 170 languages around the clock. Gypsy's Prison Confessions on January 5 at 8 p.m. ET/PT on Lifetime. Rose Blanchard, a 6-hour special providing never-before-seen access to the most well-known Munchausen by proxy victim, will have its premiere.